My toxic parents ruined my childhood, then kicked me out at 18. So I banned them from my wedding, and my fiancé went behind my back and took their side and invited them, so I went nuclear on them all. So here's the deal. I grew up with a pretty messed up family situation. My dad left when I was 12, no real reason given, just walked out, leaving my mom and me behind. After he left, things were rough for a while, but my mom eventually remarried when I was around 15 or 16. Her new husband, let's call him Dale, was okay at first. He wasn't exactly mean or anything, but he also made it clear I wasn't his kid. I was just kind of there. Not that he came out and said that, but I always got this vibe that he saw me as my mom's baggage from her previous life, not really part of his new family. Now, don't get me wrong, Dale was never outright terrible to me. He just wasn't really interested in me. He had 2 kids with my mom, my half-brother and half-sister, and they were his world. Meanwhile, I was more like a guest in the house. I didn't realize it right away, but as I got older, it became super obvious that I wasn't ever going to be part of that little family unit. My mom didn't seem to care either. I don't know if she was just too wrapped up in her new life or what, but she never made an effort to make me feel included. It was like she was happy to have her new family and didn't really need me anymore. I was pretty independent early on, maybe because I had to be. I spent a lot of time alone, doing my own thing while Dale was with his kids, and my mom was living her new life. I didn't really fit in with them, and honestly, it started to mess with me. I remember thinking, am I just extra here? Like I wasn't part of anyone's plans anymore. High school was all right, I guess. I focused on getting good grades and figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, mostly to distract myself from what was going on at home. I'd leave early, get home late, and basically avoid being there as much as I could. I got a part-time job when I was 17, which helped me stay out of the house. It wasn't a terrible life, but I knew that once I graduated, I wasn't sticking around. My plan was to go to college, get a degree, and get as far away from that situation as possible. Things got real though when I came home after my first year of college. I had just finished my freshman year, and I was excited to have a break, you know? Summer vacation, time to chill, maybe catch up with some high school friends. But nope, that wasn't in the cards for me. I still remember this like it was yesterday. I was back home for maybe a week, and everything seemed normal, or as normal as things could be in that house. My mom wasn't overly thrilled to have me back, but I didn't expect her to be. Then one night, she sat me down at the kitchen table. I thought we were going to talk about something small, like maybe me helping out more around the house or something. But no. Instead, she tells me, "I think it would be best if you didn't come home anymore." Just like that. No real explanation. She said the house was crowded, my brother and sister needed more space, and it was just easier for everyone if I found somewhere else to live. I was 19, and I was being told, essentially, "We don't want you here anymore." I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. I remember just sitting there, staring at her, trying to process what was happening. Was she seriously kicking me out? I mean, I wasn't a problem kid or anything. I kept my head down, didn't cause trouble, paid for most of my own stuff. But I guess that didn't matter. It was like I had been holding on to this thread of hope that maybe things would get better between us. That maybe once I was an adult, she'd see me differently, and we'd have some kind of relationship. But nope, this was it. I was out. I didn't argue with her, didn't try to fight it. I just nodded and went to my room, packed up what little I had, and left. I didn't even say goodbye to Dale or my half-siblings. I don't think they even noticed I was gone, to be honest. I just left. After that, I blocked her number and pretty much cut contact with her and the rest of them. I haven't spoken to my mom, Dale, or my half-brother since that day. The only one I still talk to is my half-sister, but that's mostly because she's the one who insists on staying in touch. She's always reaching out, trying to bridge the gap or whatever, but I'm not really interested in reconnecting with any of them. I'll text her here and there, but that's it. The first few months after being kicked out were rough. I stayed with a friend for a while, then managed to get a small apartment near campus. It was tough balancing school and work, but I made it through. Being on my own wasn't anything new. I'd pretty much been on my own for years, emotionally, at least. But this time, it was real. There was no going back, no family to rely on. It was just me. Over time, I learned to deal with it. I stopped thinking about my mom and Dale, stopped wondering why they didn't care. I realized that it wasn't my fault. It took a while, but I finally understood that I wasn't the problem. They were. They chose to shut me out, and that was on them. I couldn't keep beating myself up over something I had no control over. A few years later, I met my fiancée, Sarah. She's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Her family's great too. They welcomed me in without any hesitation, and for the first time I felt like I was part of a real family. I told Sarah about my messed up family situation, and she was always supportive. She didn't push me to reconnect with them or anything like that, which I appreciated. She just let me handle it in my own way. So after settling into life with Sarah and thinking my past was mostly behind me, we started planning our wedding. I was actually excited about it. Sarah and I had been together for 4 years at this point, and we both knew this was the next step. We started talking about the guest list, venues, the usual stuff. Honestly, it felt good, like I was finally building something that had nothing to do with my old life, something that was mine. We're sitting on the couch one night, and she asks, "So, who do you want to invite from your side?" That's when things got weird for me. I started naming some close friends, people I knew from college, co-workers, the ones that really mattered. I didn't even think about my family, to be honest. It was so far from my mind that it didn't feel relevant. But then she asks, "What about your parents?" I kind of froze for a second. I hadn't even considered it. Why would I? These were the people who, let's be real, couldn't care less about me for the better part of my life. I looked at her and said, "I'm not inviting them." I thought that was the end of it. Sarah's met my sister before, and she knows the basics of the situation. I figured she'd understand. But here's the thing. Sarah's got this really close-knit family. Like, her parents are the kind of people who remember birthdays, do Sunday dinners, the whole thing. So, she doesn't fully get how messed up my family situation is, not because she doesn't care, but because she's never lived through anything like it. So, she asks again, "Are you sure you don't want to invite them? I mean, it's your wedding." I wasn't angry, but I felt a little annoyed. I explained how they basically kicked me out when I was 19, how they never reached out, how they've never made any effort to fix things. And it's not like I'm sitting around waiting for an apology, but if they wanted to be part of my life, they know where I am. I've been the same person, in the same place, for years. I even told her how I haven't spoken to my mom or Dale since that day. No cards, no calls, nothing. She seemed to get it after that, and I thought we were on the same page. But a couple of days later, we're sitting down to go over the save the dates, and she brings it up again. "Are you really sure you don't want to invite them?" And that's when I started getting frustrated. I mean, how many times do I have to explain the same thing? I love Sarah, but this felt like she wasn't listening to me or respecting how much this hurt me. I kept it together, though. I told her that inviting my family would only bring stress and drama. I didn't want my mom there, pretending like everything was fine, acting like she didn't throw me out of her life. It would just ruin the day for me. She nodded and seemed to drop it, but I could tell it was still on her mind. That's when it started to eat at me. I couldn't help but think, why is this such a big deal to her? It's my family, my decision. I tried not to let it get to me, but it was hard. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I was being too harsh, but then I'd remember all the crap I went through with them and realized I wasn't. Fast forward a few more days, and we're literally about to finalize the guest list. I thought we were done with the whole family conversation, but right before we're about to hit send, she asks one more time, "Are you really sure? I feel like you might regret not inviting them later." That's when I snapped. I don't even know where it came from. It wasn't like I planned it, but all of a sudden I'm just like, if you can't respect what I've been through, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. I know, that sounds harsh, but in that moment, it felt like she was pushing me into something I was clearly not okay with. I wasn't just mad, I was hurt. It felt like she wasn't on my side. I stormed out of the room, grabbed my keys, and just left. I didn't really have a plan, I just needed space to think. I wasn't going to sit there and argue with her about something that, to me, wasn't up for debate. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I was going to do, but I just had to clear my head. I drove around for a while, thinking about how everything had blown up so quickly. I knew Sarah wasn't trying to hurt me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she just didn't get it. She didn't understand the years of rejection, the feeling of being cast aside by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. It wasn't about inviting them to a wedding. It was about everything that came with that. The memories, the pain, the whole mess of it. Eventually, I pulled over somewhere quiet and just sat in the car for a bit, trying to calm down. I kept going over the conversation in my head, and honestly, I started to feel guilty. I mean, I loved Sarah. She wasn't trying to make me feel bad. She was probably just trying to look out for me, thinking that I'd regret not inviting them one day. But I knew that wasn't the case. I didn't want them there. I didn't need their approval or their presence to validate my wedding. This day was about me and Sarah, not them. After a few hours, I drove back home. By the time I got there, it was late, and Sarah had already gone to bed. I didn't want to disturb her, so I just crashed on the couch, but I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything, and I felt like maybe I'd gone too far. I knew I'd hurt her by walking out, and that wasn't fair. We were supposed to be a team, and I bailed when things got tough. The next morning, Sarah left for work without saying much. I could tell she was upset, and I didn't blame her. I felt like I'd let her down by not handling things better. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't wrong about my family. They didn't deserve a place in my life just because there was a big event happening. You don't get to throw someone away and then show up when it's convenient. After that whole thing with Sarah, I spent most of the day just sitting with my thoughts trying to figure out how to approach her. I knew we needed to talk, but I wasn't sure how to start without it turning into another argument. Part of me wanted to let things cool off for a bit, but the other part of me knew that wasn't going to solve anything. We had to deal with this. Around 5:30, Sarah usually comes home from work. I was still working from home, so I finished up my stuff and waited for her to come through the door. I'm not going to lie, I was nervous. I knew I'd overreacted the other night by snapping at her, but I was also still upset about the whole thing with my family. It wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about whether she really understood what my family had done to me. So, 5:30 rolls around, and no Sarah. Not super unusual, but by 6 o'clock, I was starting to wonder if she was avoiding me. I texted her, just asking if everything was okay, but no response. Then, around 6:15, she walks in the door, with my sister. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My half-sister, Emily, who I'd barely spoken to in years, just casually walking into my house with Sarah like it was no big deal. I stood there in shock for a minute, trying to process what was happening. Emily didn't live anywhere near us. She was like 45 minutes away, so her being here was unexpected, to say the least. The look on Sarah's face told me she knew this wasn't going to go well. And Emily? She looked nervous, like she knew she was walking into a lion's den. I didn't even know what to say. I just kind of stared at them, waiting for one of them to explain why my sister was standing in my living room. Before I could get a word out, Emily burst into tears, like full-on crying. I don't know what it is, but seeing her like that didn't do much for me. I wasn't exactly in a place to feel sympathy for her, given everything that had happened with my family. Sarah looked at me, kind of pleading with her eyes like, please don't make this worse. But at this point, I'm just confused and pissed off. Emily starts apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for things to get like this. She's crying so hard I can barely understand her, but I didn't even know what she was apologizing for yet. After a few minutes of her sobbing, she finally starts explaining. Turns out, when she told my mom and Dale that I was engaged, it stirred up a whole bunch of drama. But not for the reason you'd think. Apparently, my engagement had nothing to do with them caring about me or being happy for me. No, it had to do with my half-brother. My half-brother, who's 27 by the way, is still living at home, jobless, and doing absolutely nothing with his life. I haven't talked to him in years either, but from what Emily said, he's basically been freeloading off my mom and Dale for the past few years. They kicked me out at 19, but here he is, 27, and they're still supporting him. My mom apparently wants him out of the house, but Dale won't let her kick him out. So, they're fighting over it. And here's the kicker. They're separated because of it. Yup. My mom and Dale are separated over my half-brother. And for some reason, my engagement stirred all this up because now my mom feels like a failure as a parent or something. I don't even know. It makes zero sense to me. I hadn't spoken to them in years, so how my engagement even came up in a conversation about my half-brother, I have no idea. But here's where it gets really wild. Emily tells me that my mom thinks getting invited to my wedding will somehow fix everything. She's convinced that if she and Dale get invited, they'll come together, see me, and all the family issues will magically disappear. Like what? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wedding was now being seen as some kind of family therapy session? At this point, I couldn't hold back anymore. I told Emily flat out that this had nothing to do with me. My engagement had nothing to do with their crappy parenting or their terrible relationship. If they're fighting over my half-brother, that's on them. It's not my responsibility to fix their problems. And I wasn't going to let my wedding become some sideshow for their drama. Emily just cried harder, saying she didn't mean to upset me, that she thought she was helping. I wasn't trying to be heartless, but I was done. I had already cut contact with my mom and Dale for a reason, and this whole situation just proved why that was the right decision. I wasn't going to be dragged back into their mess. Sarah was sitting there the whole time, watching this unfold. She didn't say much, which surprised me. Normally, she's the type to try and mediate, but I guess she saw how upset I was and decided to just let me handle it. When Emily finally stopped crying, I asked her why she came to me with this. She knows I've been no contact with our mom for years. She knows I've moved on with my life. So why now? Why bring all this drama to my doorstep? And that's when Sarah finally spoke up. She admitted that Emily had been texting her for months, telling her that deep down, I wanted to reconcile with my family. Emily had been feeding Sarah all these lies about how I was just too proud to admit it, how I secretly missed them, and how I'd regret not inviting them to the wedding. Sarah thought she was helping me by bringing it up, but she didn't realize she was being manipulated. I was furious. I couldn't believe my own sister was lying about me like that, trying to push me into doing something I clearly didn't want. And Sarah, bless her heart, had fallen for it. She thought she was doing the right thing by trying to get me to reconsider. But now that everything was out in the open, it just made me feel betrayed. Not just by Emily, but by Sarah too, for going behind my back and believing those lies. I told Emily to leave. I wasn't interested in hearing any more apologies or excuses. She tried to argue, saying she was just trying to help, but I wasn't having it. I told her Thursday hangouts were canceled. She left, still crying, but I didn't care anymore. I was done with her. I blocked her number and decided I wasn't going to speak to her again. Sarah and I? Well, we weren't exactly in a great place after that. She knew she messed up by trusting Emily over me, but I wasn't sure how to move forward. I loved her, but my trust had taken a big hit. I didn't know if we could come back from this, but I knew we had to try. After I kicked my sister out, I was left sitting there, feeling a weird mix of emotions. On one hand, I was relieved that she was finally gone. I'd drawn the line, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone else cross it again. But on the other hand, there was this heaviness in the room that I couldn't shake. Sarah had been sitting there the whole time, not saying much, and I knew that the conversation we needed to have was still hanging in the air. It wasn't going to be easy, but we had to get through it if we had any chance of moving forward. I stayed quiet for a bit, just trying to figure out what to say next. Sarah was sitting across from me, looking down at her hands, clearly upset. I wasn't angry at her anymore, but I still felt this sting of betrayal. It wasn't about Emily showing up. It was about the fact that Sarah had been talking to her behind my back for months. She should have known better. She should have trusted me. Eventually, Sarah broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft and shaky. "I didn't mean for it to get like this. I thought I was helping." I took a deep breath. I didn't want to yell or say something I'd regret, but I also didn't want to let this go without addressing it. "Why didn't you talk to me?" I asked. "You know me better than anyone. Why would you believe what Emily was saying instead of coming to me first?" She looked up at me, her eyes already teary. "I don't know," she admitted. "I guess I thought you were just too hurt to admit that you missed them. I mean, you never really talk about your family, and I just assumed that deep down, you might want to fix things. I didn't realize how bad it was." That hit me hard. I realized that maybe I hadn't been as open with Sarah as I thought I had been. Sure, she knew the basics, how my mom had kicked me out, how I'd gone no contact, but I hadn't really told her how deep those wounds went. I hadn't explained how much it had messed me up to feel like I didn't matter to my own family. Maybe I was partly to blame for not fully opening up, but it didn't change the fact that she'd let my sister manipulate her. I get that you were trying to help, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. But Sarah, I've told you over and over again that I don't want anything to do with them. I'm not secretly hoping for some big family reunion. I don't need them in my life. You should have trusted me when I said that. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You're right. I should have. I don't know. I've never dealt with anything like this. My family's always been so close, and I guess I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that you wouldn't want to make things right with yours. But now, I see that it's not the same. Your family isn't like mine. That was the thing. Sarah's family was picture perfect. Parents who loved each other, siblings who actually got along. They had their issues, sure, but nothing compared to the mess I'd been through. I couldn't blame her for not fully understanding, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I just need you to believe me when I tell you something, I said. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if it's different from what you're used to, I need you to trust that I know what's best for me when it comes to my family. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'll never go behind your back like that again. I promise. I squeezed her hand, feeling the tension between us slowly start to ease. I knew this wasn't going to fix everything right away, but it was a start. At the end of the day, I loved Sarah, and I knew she loved me. We'd been through a lot together, and this was just another bump in the road. We were going to work through it, one way or another. After a few minutes of sitting in silence, I finally asked, "What do we do now?" It felt like the big question that had been hanging over us for days. Well, Sarah said, we still need to talk about the wedding. I know we've put it off because of everything that's happened, but we can't ignore it forever. She was right. The wedding plans had come to a screeching halt the moment this whole family drama blew up. We hadn't sent out the save the dates yet, and the guest list was still sitting there, unfinished. I don't want them at the wedding, I said firmly. My mom, Dale, my brother, they don't get to be there. Not after everything they've done. I get that, Sarah replied. And I'm not going to push you anymore. It's your family, your call. I just wanted to make sure you were absolutely sure about it. I'm sure, I said. If they want to be in my life, they'll have to earn that spot. But I'm not giving them an invitation just because it's a big day. They haven't earned that, and they don't deserve it. Sarah nodded. Okay, we'll move forward without them. Update 1. The next few days after that talk with Sarah were a bit of a blur. It was like a weight had been lifted, but at the same time there was this lingering tension. We weren't fighting anymore, but we weren't exactly back to normal either. You know that weird feeling when you and someone you care about have made up, but things still feel off? Yeah, that's where we were. I tried to throw myself into work, just to keep my mind busy, but every now and then, I'd catch myself thinking about everything that had happened. I was still mad about Emily showing up unannounced and stirring up all this drama. I couldn't believe she thought my wedding would be some sort of family reunion fix-it-all event. Like, where was that logic even coming from? But I guess I should have expected it. That's how my family operates. Sweep all the issues under the rug and pretend like everything's fine. Sarah and I had agreed to move forward with the wedding plans, but the energy around it just felt different now. Before all this, it was exciting. We'd talk about venues, colors, flowers, typical wedding stuff. Now it felt like we were just trying to get through it. And I hated that. I didn't want my wedding to be overshadowed by the mess with my family. I wanted it to be about us, about starting our life together, not about them. One evening, Sarah suggested we sit down and officially finish the guest list. I wasn't exactly in the mood, but I knew we had to get it done. So we sat at the kitchen table, the guest list in front of us, and went through the names. I looked at the empty spaces where my mom, Dale, and my half-brother's names could have been. I didn't feel any guilt about leaving them off. If anything, it felt like the right call. Sarah must have noticed the look on my face because she reached over and squeezed my hand. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. Yeah, I nodded. I'm good, just weird, I guess. Seeing those empty spots. I know, she said, but you're doing the right thing. and I knew she was right. Still, it was strange. Most people invite their parents to their wedding. It's just how things usually go. But I wasn't most people. My relationship with my family wasn't normal, and that was something I had to accept. Once we finished the guest list, we moved on to some of the more fun stuff, like picking out the cake and talking about the music for the reception. It felt good to finally focus on the wedding again without the shadow of my family hanging over it. For the first time in days, Sarah and I were laughing and joking around, and for a minute, everything felt normal again. We were back to being us, the couple that was excited about getting married and building a life together. But of course, nothing stays simple for long. A couple of days later, I got a text from an unknown number. My gut immediately told me it was my mom, but I opened it anyway. Sure enough, it was her. She started the message off with something like, "I heard you're getting married. I hope we can talk." Real vague, no apology, no acknowledgement of anything that had happened in the past. Just like always, acting like everything was fine, like she could just pop back into my life whenever she felt like it. I didn't respond. I blocked the number immediately. I wasn't going to let her worm her way back in, not now, not ever. I'd already decided that my life was better without her in it, and I wasn't about to change my mind because she suddenly remembered I existed. I told Sarah about the message later that day. She was supportive, as always, but I could tell she was a little worried. I think part of her was afraid that my mom might show up uninvited or try to cause some kind of scene. To be honest, I'd thought about that too. It wouldn't be the first time my family pulled some unexpected dramatic move. But I told Sarah that if my mom did show up, we'd deal with it. I wasn't going to let her ruin our day. As the wedding got closer, things started to feel more real. We sent out the invitations, booked the caterer, all the big stuff was falling into place. It was starting to feel like we were finally moving past all the drama, and I was starting to get excited again. This wedding wasn't just going to be a big party. It was going to be a fresh start. A new chapter for Sarah and me, and I couldn't wait to start it. On the day of the wedding, I woke up feeling nervous, but it wasn't because of my family. It was that typical pre-wedding jitters, excitement mixed with a bit of anxiety. I kept thinking about how far I'd come, how I'd managed to build a life that was mine, separate from all the baggage of my past. It felt good, knowing that this day was about celebrating the future Sarah and I were going to create together. The ceremony itself went off without a hitch. We said our vows, exchanged rings, and when I looked at Sarah standing there in front of me, I felt this overwhelming sense of peace. Like, no matter what happened with my family or anything else, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. This was the life I'd built, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. At the reception, we danced, laughed, and spent time with our friends and Sarah's family. There were no interruptions, no drama, just a perfect day. I think for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from the weight of the past, free from the expectations of people who had never really cared about me. I didn't need their approval, and I didn't need them in my life. I had everything I needed right in front of me. Looking back now, I'm glad I stood my ground. I'm glad I didn't cave to the pressure of what's normal or what other people think a family should be. I made the decision that was right for me, for my mental health, for my future. And that's all that matters. I don't know if I'll ever hear from my mom or the rest of my family again, but honestly, I don't care. My life is good now. I'm married to the love of my life, surrounded by people who actually love and support me. That's the only family I need. So yeah, it's been a long road to get here, but in the end, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that feels pretty damn good.